So I thought I'd give an example of redistricting, a toy example. So we're going to take a state and we'll draw it up a couple different ways to demonstrate why you want to control the redistricting process to get the outcome that you want. Before we get there, we'll talk about just two different outcomes you can get from redistricting. So one is what we call a partisan gerrymander. This is when one party controls all of the state government. They try to win as many seats as possible for that party. It's both legal, so the Supreme Court has said this is legal, but it can be a little risky. So again, the same party controls the lower chamber, the upper chamber, and the governorship. If the governor's involved in redistricting, that's usually the case. And they're trying to draw as many seats for their party as possible. So the reason this is risky is you might draw a bunch of seats that are maybe 51, 49% to your advantage. So if the partisan tides shift at some point, and they do sometimes, so the Republicans drew a lot of districts in the last decade, but in 2018, the partisan tides shifted and the Democrats were able to pick up seats. This was because some of the districts were a little not pushed far enough and for one party versus another. So this is a partisan gerrymander. So, and we'll give an example of a partisan gerrymander. The other outcome is what we call an incumbent protection plan. So under this outcome, usually all or most of the incumbents win again. So you just basically draw the map that looks pretty similar to the old map, and we maintain the status quo. So this is usually an outcome when the state government is divided. So for example, if the Democrats control the lower chamber and the Republicans control the upper chamber, so we have divided government here, neither chamber is going to agree on a partisan gerrymander outcome. So it's much easier to agree on a map where everyone just gets reelected. So again, maintaining the status quo. You end up wasting votes, so you end up drawing a bunch of districts that are probably 60-40 or 70-30 in favor of one party, and it's pretty safe because the partisan tides can shift, but it's not necessarily going to change the outcomes all that much. Okay, so here's our example. This is a state, a square state out in the Midwest somewhere. Each letter is a person, and they get one vote. When we draw districts, we have to draw them according to the rules. So we're going to draw 5 districts, and there's 25 people here, so we need 5 people per district. And the other thing I've actually never mentioned is districts have to be contiguous. That is, you can't take 3 people over here and 2 people down here and call it a district. So all the sort of people and the lines have to be contiguous. Every once in a while, there's some weird district like out in California that's only contiguous during high tide, or actually low tide, I guess, or there's islands, and of course there's exceptions for islands. So when we draw our districts, we can draw 5, because that's what I'm saying we can do, and we have to have 5 people in each district. Now, if you look at this state, there are more Republicans than there are Democrats, right? So there's 5 more Republicans than Democrats. But I'll show you, you can draw these districts in such a way that the Democrats can actually gain an advantage. Okay, so here's what we're going to call the status quo map. So the existing map, with the Republicans had a 3-2 advantage in the congressional delegation. So here's a bunch of Republicans here, 1 district, 2 districts, 3 districts for Republicans, and then the bottom 2 here are Democratic districts. So these are like very much packed districts, right? They're all one side or the other. Not a real outcome you're going to get, but for the toy example, it'll work. So before redistricting, the Republicans had 3 districts, 1, 2, 3, at the congressional level, and the Democrats had 2. So this map is probably what we would call an incumbent protection plan. This is the old existing map. Okay, now in this example, I'm going to pretend the Democrats were able to get control of the state legislature and the governorship, and they're going to draw the districts for the next decade. And so they want to gain an advantage. So we think about how can the Democrats take this map, even though it has more Republicans than Democrats, how can they draw some districts that are give them an advantage? And so they can use the different techniques we talked about packing and cracking. So I'm going to say pause the video, think about it, and you can draw maybe on the screen here how you would draw the potential districts. Okay, so assuming you took the time to do that. So here's our map. And so we're going to use our different techniques, packing and cracking, to draw some districts. So the Democrats are in charge. So what are they going to do? First, they're going to pack these Republicans up here into a district. Then these Republicans into a district. So that's 2 Democratic districts. They're packed in there. Republicans are going to win. These incumbents are happy because they get to return to office. Now we're going to start to draw some districts that, maybe look, they're not strange, but they're not straight lines like this. So we're going to use the cracking technique. So we're going to take this bunch of Republicans and crack them into 3 different districts. So we can imagine this could be the first district where we have 3 Ds and 2 Rs, so Democratic district. This next district, the same thing, 3 Ds and 2 Rs, Democratic district. And then what's left is 4 Ds and 1 R. So now the Democrats actually have 1, 2, 3 seats they're going to win. And the Republicans have 2. So we flip this on its head. Even though the Democrats have fewer voters, they're able to have more districts. Now you might say, that doesn't seem fair. Well, it might not seem fair, but the Supreme Court says it's legal. And that's the important thing. So fairness doesn't really come into play here, it's legality. So they can gerrymander the same state that we had before to control the delegation 3-2. So they had a disadvantage before, and now they have an advantage. And this goes on in lots of states. So this is not a Democratic thing or Republican thing. Both sides do this if they can get away with it, and they can. Okay, same state, but this time the Republicans are in charge. So remember before, this was the status quo map with the 3-2 advantage to Republicans. But now the Republicans are still in charge. You're like, well, we want to pick up some more seats. So what can you do? So here's the map. They want a bigger lead. And again, if you want to do this yourself, the Republicans want to get more. Hit pause. You can draw on the screen there and try to figure out what you want to do. But it's pretty straightforward, right? So the Republicans can actually pick up all the seats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 districts. So they went from having 3 districts to 5. Same state. They have an advantage, but it's not all the voters. So the Democrats are effectively shut out in the congressional district delegation. Again, perfectly legal. These are a little risky because you could think, what if one of these R's turned into a D? They would probably lose that district. But sometimes it's worth it to take the risk to try to do that. So again, this is just some example. Same state, depends who's in charge of drawing the lines, you can get vastly different outcomes. So this is why you want to control the districts or control the legislature or the districting process leading up to the districts you're going to draw after the census.